Greetings and welcome to the Dr. J Vlog series. It's Saturday, July 19th, 2025, and on Saturdays we talk about sports and humor. And this week we've been talking a lot about energy in different contexts and from different perspectives. And so in relation to kind of sports and activity in general, obviously we need energy. If you have enough energy, you're usually ready to just take on the world. And that's a great feeling. When you lack that energy and you experience fatigue, you can struggle sometimes, perhaps even just to get through the day. So obviously, if you want to operate at peak performance, athletes or non-athletes alike, no matter what you do for a living, you've got to have sufficient energy. And yet many people experience chronic forms of weariness or fatigue or exhaustion. They just don't have the energy. That's a real problem for so many of us. So a lack of energy then is what leads to fatigue, which manifests physically in terms of weakness or weariness. It manifests mentally in terms of a lack of concentration and sharpness, and it manifests emotionally. That is in the sense of having perhaps a lack of motivation or boredom. These are all aspects of fatigue, and they're usually the byproduct of low energy. So some of the causes then of our low energy and fatigue are readily apparent, like if you're sick, you have a cold, a flu, COVID, whatever. You're experiencing a period of high intensity at work, or you're overworking yourself. That obviously can lead to fatigue. You're not eating well. You're experiencing an inordinate amount of stress in your life. You're living a sedentary lifestyle. All of these things and more can lead to a lack of energy. So other factors might be caused by medical conditions. And that's the kind of thing that you have to look into a little bit more carefully. Or they might be related or a byproduct or a function of your age and your actual physical size and metabolism and so on. And so if you're feeling tired all the time and there's no clear indicator or reason as to why that's the case, perhaps you might consult your physician or take a medical approach, at least in part. So in that sense, for example, if you were to get a full workup or a blood workup, that's the sort of thing that my physician regularly recommends, and then writes scripts to get this or that type of blood work done, looking for this or that type of condition. So for example, you might be suffering from anemia, right? That's when your blood has too few red blood cells, or those cells have too little hemoglobin. That's the protein that transports oxygen through the bloodstream. And so the result is a drop in energy levels. Or you might have some, hopefully, early stage or some form of heart disease, if you do have heart disease. That usually causes the heart then to pump more slowly or less efficiently, and it leads to fluid in the lungs. So as the heart has to work harder to do what's supposed to do. And that causes shortness of breath. It causes reduction in oxygen supply to the heart and lungs and so on, and that makes you tired. And not unrelated issue in my case was the situation of having some type of blockage that not necessarily due to heart disease, but in my case I had a massive pulmonary embolism. And again, that was definitely causing fatigue, and I didn't have that diagnosed early on. If I did, I could have avoided a lot of headache and a lot of medical issues and so forth. Another issue could be hypothyroidism. That is to say, when if you have an underactive thyroid, that can cause fatigue and other symptoms, such as weight gain and weakness, dry skin, feeling cold, and even constipation. And that's something, again, that can be easily regulated if it's diagnosed. What about sleep disorders? Sleep disruptions will leave you feeling tired, obviously, the next day. The two of the most common sources are insomnia and sleep apnea. So with insomnia, you might have trouble falling asleep or staying asleep or getting a good quality sleep. That's been my issue, certainly for the last few years. Sleep apnea is characterized by pauses in your breathing or shallow breathing. And other issues, a variety of different things can disrupt your sleep. Such as restless leg syndrome, a condition that forces repeated nighttime bathroom trips, that is an overactive bladder or even an enlarged prostate, and so Another issue, check your medication if you're taking any. Some medications obviously are going to make you feel tired, such as certain blood pressure drugs, antidepressants, anti-anxiety drugs, and even antihistamines. There also could be hormonal changes that you're experiencing. So fatigue is a common symptom of low hormone levels, like testosterone in older men and estrogen in women, especially during menopause. It's also possible you could be suffering from some type of low-grade depression or anxiety, if not a serious one. And mental health issues, if they do get serious, are obviously going to directly affect your energy and fatigue levels. And indeed, there's even something called chronic fatigue syndrome. That is, severe, prolonged tiredness could be a sign of chronic fatigue syndrome. This is a kind of a mysterious disorder that's characterized by profound fatigue that doesn't improve with rest and may in fact worsen with physical and mental activities. Some people can be completely debilitated as a result. There are, in addition, then 3 main types of fatigue. That is physical, mental, and emotional. So physical fatigue obviously involves a lack of strength and endurance. Mental fatigue leads to slower reaction times or poor concentration. And emotional fatigue essentially leads to your feeling depressed and your spirits depleted and so on. And so the experience of fatigue then comes in a variety of different forms, but the 2 main different types are muscle fatigue on the one hand and a condition called central fatigue or brain fatigue on the other hand. Okay, so muscle fatigue is the weakness that comes when you're tired in terms of your muscles, like after exercise and activity, that sort of thing. Oh, I'm really exhausted. That's quite normal. But if the muscles become fatigued, then they don't contract as forcefully and they don't, or as quickly, and as muscles that are well rested. And again, they could become damaged and you could suffer even longer term consequences. So you have to monitor, obviously, your muscular responses to your daily activities, not just activity, but as I say, on a regular basis. And then when most people say that they're fatigued or they lack energy, they're usually describing a condition called central fatigue or brain fatigue. And they mean that they're having trouble paying attention or concentrating or feeling motivated to perform. And they may also just simply feel sleepy all the time, right? Specific areas of the brain are actually responsible for attention and concentration, and other areas are centrally involved in motivation. And then still others are involved in alertness or sleepiness. So these are things that you have to monitor in your own situation at an individual level. And then ideally, of course, we want to combat the problems and figure out ways to boost our energy. Most people that I know would prefer to be full of energy, or they would prefer to, if they could, come up with solutions to their relative lack of energy or fatigue. And so remember, fatigue is a symptom. It's not a disease in and of itself. And it's experienced differently by different people. And then fatigue, if it's a byproduct of stress or a lack of sleep, usually that can subside after a good night's sleep or a couple of good nights' sleep. But other types of fatigue are longer lasting, more chronic, more debilitating, and even a good night's sleep won't necessarily reduce or certainly even eliminate fatigue. So here are my sort of top 10 ways or top 10 list for how you can then combat fatigue yourself more effectively. Starting with number 1, and with sports as a theme today, exercise. Get active. Without question, this is one of the most important things that you can do for yourself. Regular physical activity. I'm not saying you have to join a sports team or do sports that you've never done before or learn a new sport, but get active with the kinds of things that you know historically you've enjoyed or that you feel like you can still do and still quite comfortably enjoy. It almost will guarantee that you'll get better sleep, for example, tonight. You'll basically be activating your muscles and your brain. You'll be doing all sorts of things to give your cells more energy by burning calories, by circulating the blood through your body, right? All the things that we talk about all the time. And also this, as we've talked about previously, and probably, releases dopamine, right? And serotonin. And all of this is going to help you elevate your mood and help you to sleep better as well. A second factor, of course, is diet. A diet that contains foods with low glycemic indexes, that is, whose sugars are absorbed more slowly, are going to help you avoid the energy lags that you often experience. And this is typical of many of our diets. That is to say, many of us don't eat as properly as we should, or we eat the types of diets that that involve a lot of simple carbohydrates and refined starches, and that's not in our best interest if we're talking about building up our energy supplies and reserves and letting the energy release more slowly and more actively throughout our bodies and throughout the day. So foods with low glycemic indices would include things like whole grains, high fiber vegetables, nuts, and healthy oils like olive oil, among other things. And then as a related matter, number three, take vitamin supplements if necessary to ensure that you're managing sufficiently what your body requires, again, in light of your age and gender and relative size and so on. So vitamins are essential then to support various bodily functions, including, most importantly here, energy production, but also in terms of cell growth and repair, because if your cell, again, you don't think about it, you don't see it at the individual level, but if your body more generally is suffering from a lack of efficient cellular repair, that in the aggregate is going to lead to further exhaustion and lack of energy. And also, again, it's going to help boost or improve your immune system functioning. So these are all crucial issues, and they're in part related to our vitamin intakes. So this is something that you have to regulate. You'll also want to use caffeine wisely. Caffeine does help increase alertness. A lot of people swear by their cup of coffee in the morning, that sort of thing, to help get them going and sharpen their minds. But at the same time, don't overdo the caffeine, and don't just use it randomly throughout the day. Use it more judiciously, and certainly stop using it as the day wears on, because caffeine can also obviously cause insomnia, especially when consumed in larger amounts and after the mid-late afternoon. You'll also want to limit your alcohol consumption. One of the best hedges against the mid-afternoon slump is to avoid drinking anything alcoholic, certainly at lunchtime. And if you are going to drink, obviously do so in moderation, and do so at a time when it's not going to be particularly concerning, or you don't have to, it doesn't matter if your energies are winding down a bit. That's why it's okay. I mean, if you're if you're inclined to have a glass of wine at dinner, at night, that sort of thing. I don't drink any alcohol myself. I've been lucky in the sense that I've never really enjoyed it or craved it that much. I might have an occasional glass of wine or a cold beer on a summer day, whatever. But it's more of it's almost like, having a piece of cheesecake. It's almost like a guilty pleasure. But I rarely drink alcohol myself, so I'm lucky in that sense. And then, again, in some ways, an extension of this concept is just in the importance of staying hydrated. So if your body's dehydrated, one of the first signs that you get is fatigue and exhaustion. And so that's partly why you should be drinking water throughout the day. And this is something I can personally attest to. So, I mean, you've all heard the advice about, drinking 8 glasses of water a day, that sort of thing. The Institute of Medicine recommends that men should aim for about 15 cups. That we're talking about 8 ounces. 15 cups of water a day on average, and women about 12 cups. But again, this can vary at the personal level. Besides, water, you can also get some of your water, your fluid, obviously, through your coffees and teas and juices, and then liquid-heavy fruits and vegetables that are up to 90% water, like cucumbers and zucchinis and squash and strawberries and citrus fruits and melons. But I wanted to say, too, that I've actually self-consciously started drinking more water, and that has made a difference. I see that on a regular basis, not just because I'm working out more, but I've been self-consciously scheduling more drinks, more water breaks, shall we say, throughout the day, just to, again, stay ahead of the curve rather than waiting until I'm really feeling thirsty, that sort of thing. Another thing is you need to monitor and restrict your sleep patterns to some extent. I mean, obviously you need to sleep. When I say restrict your sleep, I'm talking about if you think you're part of your fatigue is sleep related or being sleep deprived, start by getting a little bit less sleep and start at some kind of basic minimum to see how your body responds. I wouldn't recommend doing less than 4 hours at night. And ideally, if you can sleep 4 hours as a start, that's great. If you can't even sleep 4 hours, then you're really suffering. That's been my problem. But start there and then try to work your way forward. Build up to perhaps 6 hours and then maybe 7 or 8 hours. But the key is you have to experiment with different lengths because some people can survive quite comfortably, right, on 5 to 6 hours of sleep, and they're ready to, and raring to go in the morning. If I could get 6 hours of sleep straight and restful sleep each night, I'd be great to go every day. But a lot of people, some people, might need 8 to 9 hours to be at their optimal level. So again, that's going to vary. The key is to be able to sleep steadily and soundly as long as possible for whatever your body is able to respond to. And if you do that, then you're going to end up waking up feeling refreshed. So when we say get a good night's sleep, that depends on you and your metabolism and your habits and a variety of different factors. You'll also want to try to lighten your load where possible because overwork's a real problem for many folks. And that can include professional, family, and social obligations. So try to streamline your must-do activities. Set your priorities in terms of the most critical tasks and pare down those that are less important. And again, get extra help if necessary, if you can afford it or if there's a logical, social network that you're attached to whereby others can take up some of the slack and whatever. And then in so doing, you want to try to control your stress levels, number 9. So stress-induced emotions consume massive amounts of energy. And so actively seek those strategies then that can help you take control of your stress. That is whether you're talking about, relationships, just chatting with, close friends or relatives, or meditating and yoga or taking walks in nature. Just spending more time in activities that will help you relax in general. This is critical, whatever that might be for you, and then go for it. And then finally, number 10, develop your mental resilience and adopt a more positive attitude. Easier said than done, I know, but the point is this includes a range of different behavioral and cognitive strategies. So for example, try to avoid doom scrolling or watching depressing materials or political stuff online or on a regular basis, whatever your source of your information. Limit your social media time. Surround yourself or spend more time with more positive and optimistic people in general. So the point is that no matter what life throws at you, you want to actively work on how you mentally manage stress and people and daily obligations in general. If you're like me, that means you actually have to work self-consciously at changing your views, moving away from a kind of ingrained or learned pessimism, the Eeyore syndrome. It'll never work. We'll never make it. That's what I call the Eeyore syndrome. Or, negativity in general. So you want to be able to try to change that and reframe and refocus how you think about things so that you look at the sort of brighter or lighter side of what's happening in your life, in the world around you. So most importantly, in my view, do a self-audit, if you will, a self-assessment, and be honest with yourself. What are you doing, or what habits do you have that are draining you of your energy? I'm not perfect at this by any stretch, but I've gotten much better at this over the years, and it's been the issue of identifying sources of wasted energy. So I try to waste as little energy as possible. And what do I mean by that? I try to worry as little as possible about things that I can't control. I do still worry, and that's been a problem of mine. But I actively work at worrying less, if that makes sense. I spend more energy on avoiding worrying than I ever have in my life. But now I've gotten much better at it, much more efficient at it. So the point is that, spend less time and energy on, again, that which you cannot control, on people who have hurt you, in the past or who might be hurting you now, Waste as little energy on them as possible, or on those memories as possible. And waste as little energy as possible on spinning your wheels on things that you can't realistically do. Again, either try to change your focus or pass that off to someone else, or just don't worry about it, if you will. So, and then I try to avoid as much as possible the issues of gossiping and criticizing other people. To me, that's just wasted energy. I don't need to do that. Or complaining a lot about life or the state of the world. Now, again, to be fair, we all do that to some degree. But the point is that shouldn't be your main focus. So if you want to blow off a little steam or talk to somebody, yeah, okay, I get it. I do that. We all do that. But again, do you need to do that for an hour? Do you need to do that continually? Do you need to do that throughout the day? No, if you're going to do that, if you're going to complain about something, try to keep it short and succinct, or just give off a yawp, or do something, to let off a little bit of steam, but then get back on track, get focused again. So again, waste as little energy as possible worrying about the things that you can't control, and the people that you can't change, and the world that you can't save, and try to focus instead on the positives, what life has to offer, what you can do, and commit your energies in that direction. And by doing that, by changing that attitude, it's remarkable how much you'll be able to tap into reserves of energy that you didn't even know you had, and in part because you haven't been wasting it on stuff that really doesn't matter. Okay? All right. So that's it. That's my advice for the day. I hope this has been helpful. It's been a little longer than I thought it would be, but nonetheless, as ever, may you and yours continue to create peace in your lives, nurture love in your hearts, and dole out hugs in abundance. And hopefully I shall see you mañana. Take care.